Which Atmos speakers are best? That is the topic that we are going to be talking about today. So if you are designing an Atmos-enabled theater, you want sounds to come from above, in addition to the sounds that come from the front and the sides and the rear. Now, there are different ways to accomplish this, and so today we're going to be talking about the four main speaker types that can be used for Atmos or Height speakers. The first style is upfiring. These are sometimes referred to as the bouncy house speakers. I believe that is the technical name for them. And what it really means is that the speaker sits on top of your main speaker or somewhere else in the room, and it upfires the sound, and it hits your ceiling, bounces off your ceiling, and then arrives at your ear. That's how they're supposed to work in theory. Based on everything that I have read, heard, and seen, they don't really accomplish that. They're not very effective. Now, I'm happy to be proven wrong. I did come across one post where somebody said that they really had to move them around and get them really dialed in and calibrated, and then they were able to achieve some semblance of hearing the sound coming from above. But that seems to be a rare case. For the most part, from what I've seen, they aren't really effective. So that's the first style, the upfiring or bouncy house speakers. The second style are sometimes referred to as elevation speakers. And what sets these elevation speakers apart is that they have a slanted front. The driver part of the speaker is angled in such a way that if you install it up at the point where your wall meets your ceiling, right there, and then the driver is angled down, and in theory, it's angled down towards the main listening position, and you hear it kind of coming from above. So that's the second style, elevation. The third style, and this is the most common, this is usually what people think of when they hear Atmos or Height channel, and that is an in-ceiling speaker that goes directly inside the ceiling and then downfires down towards the floor or the listener. And then the fourth style, and this is the least common that I've seen, is the bookshelf speaker. And this is where you take just a standard, regular bookshelf speaker and you mount it to a mount that then attaches to the ceiling, and then you can angle the speaker and point it directly at the main listening position. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each of these? Now, I've already kind of touched on the disadvantages with the upfiring speakers. That being, they don't really work. So I would, and again, I am happy to be proven wrong on this, but I would strongly discourage anyone from going down this path. To me, it seems like wasted money and wasted effort, because you're going to spend money, you're going to buy these speakers, you're going to install them, and then you're going to be very unimpressed with how they sound or don't sound, because that sound is just not getting to your ear. Now, the second style, the elevation speakers, for those, I question why they are an advantage over just simply installing a bookshelf speaker. Yeah, they have that angled part that, in theory points the driver towards the main listening position or down towards the seating area. But you could accomplish that with a bookshelf speaker. Just buy a bookshelf speaker that has a mount and attach it to a mount that can articulate, attach it right to the wall, and then you can angle it directly at the main listening position. And so I'm not sure what advantage those elevation speakers have over just a regular bookshelf speaker. Now, the third style, the in-ceiling speaker, again, these are the most common. The advantage is because they're in-ceiling, they're out of the way. They're virtually invisible, especially if you cover them with a grill that's been painted the same color as your ceiling. They essentially just disappear. And so you don't see them, but you hear them. They are a little trickier to install because you have to cut a hole in your ceiling and you have to place them. You're constrained where you can place them by what's in the ceiling. So if you have HVAC or electrical lines or anything like that inside pipes, inside the ceiling, you're constrained. And they have to be installed between your floor joists, or your rafters, because they have to sit up in there. So there are some limitations in that regard. But again, they are invisible, and they, if done right, they can sound pretty good. Now the fourth style, the bookshelf speaker, again, this is the least common, and usually sometimes when I suggest using bookshelf speakers to people, I'll get responses like, "What in the world? Why in the world would you use a bookshelf speaker as an Atmos speaker?" And my response to that is, "Why not? Like, what would be the disadvantage of doing that?" Now, the advantage of a bookshelf speaker, again, is you can attach it to a mount that then bolts to your ceiling. And if you get an articulating mount, then you can adjust that speaker and get it exactly dialed in where it is pointing directly at the main listening position. Now, this is something that is really critical, and I want to emphasize this point. A speaker, when it produces sound, the sound travels out in a cone shape, typically. Now, when you have a speaker that's mounted inside the ceiling and it is pointing straight down, that means the sound is coming down from the ceiling in a cone shape, and inside that cone is where you get the best quality sound. If you are outside of that cone, then you probably will be able to hear it, but it's going to be less than ideal. And I have here a highly technical and scientifically accurate representation of what I'm talking about. You can see the in-ceiling speaker is projecting the sound down, and because we place the Atmos speakers at an angle to the main listening position, most likely you are outside of the ideal positioning from that speaker. And so the best sound that's coming from that speaker is going straight into the floor, not into your ear. Now, compare that to a bookshelf speaker. Again, I have another highly technical and scientifically accurate representation of this. If you attach a bookshelf speaker to your ceiling and get it dialed in, and it is perfectly aligned and directed at the main listening position, you can put your ear in the best possible quality sound right there. So, based on what I've just shown you, you're probably able to guess which of these four speaker types I personally prefer. Now, in my theater here, I have 4 height channels. I have a 9.2.4 Atmos setup. And my 4 height channels, I have 2 bookshelf speakers, and I have 2 in-ceiling speakers. So I actually have both. The in-ceiling speakers are in line with the main listening position, and then the bookshelf speakers are forward of the main listening position. And so the bookshelf speakers are directed right at the main listening position, but the in-ceiling speakers are off to the side. Now, does that mean I can't hear my in-ceiling speakers? No, I can still hear them, and they sound good. However, when I originally built this theater, I had 4 in-ceiling speakers. And after running some calibration and audio tests, I discovered that my front Atmos speakers, because they're pointed directly at the floor and I'm a ways back from them, a full range of the best sound. There was massive drop-off in sound quality and volume. It was almost cut in half. It shocked me how little amount of the sound was actually making it to the main listening position. And so when I saw those readings, I realized those speakers were basically doing nothing. And so I replaced them with the bookshelf speakers, and the bookshelf speakers, working with the mains, produce just seamless sound. It is a perfect blend between the mains and then the heights that are slightly above them in line with the main listening position. So, if I had it to do over again, which would I choose? I think if I had it to do over again, I think I would do 4 bookshelf speakers, because then the 2 that are in line with the main listening position, I could then, instead of pointing down at the floor, I could angle them and aim them right at my ears. And I think that would provide a higher quality sound. Now, in your room, every room is different. And so the constraints and what you have to work with, what works in my room may not work in yours, and vice versa. Some people have angled, pitched ceilings. And for those, if you do in-ceiling speakers, if the pitch is right and it's angled correctly, those might be the best to just put in-ceiling speakers in and have them aimed directly at your ears. But if the pitch isn't right, it might be worse than if they were just pointed directly at the floor. So in that case, you may have to do bookshelf speakers. It all just depends. It all depends on your situation. It also depends if you even have a section above you that you can install in-ceiling speakers into. Your only option may be to mount a speaker to the ceiling. But it just depends. So I am curious to hear what other people have in their rooms and what the limitations are and the constraints that they're working with. So if you have any questions or if you want to share, definitely leave a comment. I'd be happy to hear what your situation is and make a recommendation or just hear what kind of results you got from it. Thanks for watching.